Previously on Retro Hack Shack.
This is some sort of a clone PC, but it doesn't have the IBM badge up here. It has these mountains, these three mountains. I'm not sure what logo that is. I'm not sure I've ever seen that one before. Hey, wait a second. IBM. It does say right here, 5170. Could this be an actual 5170 IBM computer? It looks like there was a monitor up here. and then there was some like water that leaked out or something. And then down here in the corner, there's all kinds of gunk and like bugs and gross stuff on here. That's interesting. We get absolutely nothing. Why is that? No go, no juice at all. We'll have to come back to this and I'll do a dedicated episode on resurrecting this 5170 beauty from IBM. So if you haven't guessed, today's episode is going to be all about fixing this IBM 5170 PCAT computer. If you want to take a look at what I found inside when I brought this home from eWaste, you can go back and take a look at the eWaste episode where I first showed this. But now let's jump right into the repair. So I want to test this power supply again. And luckily I have some of the best commenters in the world and subscribers that follow my channel. And I always get great information from them for things like this, where there's these corner cases. And I'll tell you what that is in just a minute. But so many people have so much more knowledge about this stuff than I do. And it's just great that people are willing to share it, in a nice and friendly way. So I really appreciate all of the comments that you guys leave on this stuff. Anyway, it was brought to my attention by a user, Mark Wanklin, in the comments, and maybe a couple other people mentioned this too. I was scrolling through to try to see if anybody else mentioned this, but he definitely mentioned it. And it turns out for this particular power supply, it requires a lot of load on the 12-volt line for the power supply to even start up. So now you can kind of guess what's going on here, right? So you're seeing that I have all of these hard drives hooked up. You kind of know where this is going. But the original 5170, when it was sold with the floppy only configuration, usually right down here in this slot would have been a big fat beefy resistor in a metal cage. And if you needed to test the power supply, you could actually hook that up directly to the hard drive power cable here. It was a 5 ohm, I believe a 50 watt resistor, and it was in a little cage, and it would have been right here where the hard drive normally went. And that was specifically for testing the power supply. You could hook it up to draw that load, or even to just get the power supply to start, you would need to hook that up, and that would draw the load. And the load that's needed here, I believe, is somewhere around between 2 and 2.5 amps. That's a lot on this power supply to get it started. So that could be why the power supply didn't start up, as I only had one hard drive connected, if you recall, in that last video, and that might not have been enough load to start up the power supply with nothing else connected to it. So what I'm going to do to test this out is I've got 4 hard drives connected now with the use of these splitter cables. And I'm going to see if that will give me enough load to get this started. And I was just looking at the ratings on some of these, on the 12-volt line on these hard drives. Are usually listed right here on the stickers that are on the hard drives. And if you look, you can see, for example, these are rated at 12 volt, 0.45 amps. Both of these, I believe, are 0.45 amps. So this is about an amp here, and I think these are rated at 0.3 amps. So if this doesn't work, I may have to go back in and see if I have an MDA hard drive that's going to pull a lot more load on this power supply, because that's what it would have been expecting originally. So right now I've got 1 and like 1.7 amps on here, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I'm going to try this again and see if that's enough load to actually get this power supply to start operating correctly. Okay, let's see if the fan turns on, or perhaps there'll be some magic smoke, because there may be some reefer caps in here as well that need to be changed. So anyway, here we go. Let's see what happens. Oh, there's the fan. That was it. That was it. The fan is on and running, guys. That is amazing. So normally I've never had any other PCs that I've tested that have required that much load on the 12-volt line to get them up and running. But the fan is on and it seems pretty stable. So let's start testing some of these rails and see what we get here. So this should be the 5-volt line, and it's sitting at 5.2-ish, so a little high. Here's the 12-volt, and it's sitting at 11.9, almost 12 volts. So guess what? This power supply is actually working, and the voltage seems stable. No smoke coming out, so it just was just the fact that I didn't have enough load on the 12-volt rail here to get this thing to start up. Thank you, subscribers and commenters in the channel. I'm telling you, you guys are gold. So by the way, I did pick up a pack. I picked a pack of pickled power resistors. I picked up this pack of power resistors, these load resistors, and this is the right rating based on the IBM manual, 5 ohms. It's rated for 50 watts, but since it's 5 ohms and it's 12 amps, you can do the math on that and you come up with about 2.4 amps. So yeah, you can still pick these up on eBay, or on Amazon. I'm sure you can get them on eBay as well. And you can even choose, various ohm ratings to get to whatever type of load you actually need to get to. So I thought I'd test this real quick. I've got nothing hooked up to the power supply right now, not even the motherboard. And this is the load resistor. Here's what it looks like. You can see it's got this aluminum heat sink on it, because I would imagine this gets fairly hot. And the interesting thing about this is I've hooked it up to the 12-volt and ground lines here, because the 12-volt is what the power supply needs to be able to start up, is a load on the 12 volts. So I've got that connected here. We're just going to plug this in. But the interesting thing I wanted to point out is there's mounting holes on the load resistor, and those mounting holes actually still, to this day, match up to these holes on the back of the IBM here. So on the back of this drive caddy, whatever you want to call it, these holes line up exactly with those holes. I don't know if that's some sort of industry standard or a carryover from older days that they just started doing this and they still make them with these dimensions. But yeah, if I wanted to, I could totally put some screws in here and screw this down and leave this as a permanent fixture for if I wanted to run it without anything connected, I guess. I don't know why I would want to do that. I just thought it was kind of interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this load resistor up to this Molex connector right here. So it's powering the 12 volts. And I'm just going to kind of leave it set like that. Get the other wires out of the way. And I've got my meter here plugged into the 5-volt line. So we'll be able to see if the 12-volt line is starting it up, what the rating is on or what the measurement is on the 5-volt line. So let's see if it actually starts with this load resistor connected to the 12-volt rail here. No, it does not. It wants to start, but it's not starting. That's interesting. Okay, so now I've got the load resistor and 2 hard drives. Let's see what that does. There it goes. That time it fired up. I guess this load resistor isn't quite big enough, or either that or they assume that you're going to have the motherboard connected and the floppy drive connected and this, and then that gets everything to start up. Yeah, the load resistor is getting fairly warm. Yeah, it's getting warm. You wouldn't want to touch it. So the heatsink is doing its job. But yeah, you wouldn't want to hold on to this. It's getting quite warm. So interesting that the load resistor in and of itself is not enough to start up this particular power supply.
That got me thinking. Maybe you want to start up a new PCB project without much resistance. See what I did there? Well, you can do it with the help of today's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is still a great place to go to get all of your PCB manufacturing needs, including assembly. And they've got some great news. They recently moved to a new factory, and they're going to be lowering the pricing of their multi-layer boards by up to 20%. So you can get a great deal on a new PCB from PCBWay. And I thank them for their support of the Retro Hack Shack.
Now I want to test the motherboard for shorts on the power rails, and easiest way to do this is right here at the connections. There should be ground connections in the middle here. And, oops, I'm not in continuity mode. There we go. Should be able to hear. There we go. If I touch a couple of these ground pins together, of course, we have ground. And then there should be, I believe it's 5 volts on this side, and then other rails over here, like 12 and negative 12 and things. So I just want to go through here in continuity mode and make sure that there's no shorts. And there could be, because it doesn't look like there's any shorts on the 5-volt rails. You will get kind of false shorts sometimes because, where was that? Yeah, this one is going through a capacitor. So that's not shorted. It's just going through a capacitor. Same thing here. Same thing there. So those are all probably 5 volts. And then we go here. That's another ground pin. So that's going to short. These are going through capacitors as well. This board here, this looks like there's no shorts yet. Of course, when we put power through the board, it may end up shorting out some of these tantalums. Hopefully not, but at least we've done some pre-work so that we know that there's no shorts right now as we sit here today. Okay, the next issue that could potentially have is the RAM. So before I try to do a power on test, I wanted to take a look at that. And this is some I don't want to say non-standard, but less standard, less common memory, that's for sure. This is a piggybacked chip, and it's piggybacked on purpose. These are 41128 memory chips, and they're piggybacked and soldered like this from the factory, and they have a different kind of a select pin here, where if you select one pin, you can use the lower part of the memory, and if you select another pin, you can use the upper part of the memory. And so for whatever reason, IBM decided to use these 41128 chips only in the first model of 5170. There were several revisions that came out, and if you have a revision number 1, then you're stuck with this memory, which can be a little bit harder to find. But I was able to find some replacement chips. So in the video, the eWaste Wednesday video, where I took a quick look at this board, I noticed that there was one pin or one chip missing here. And so I went ahead and ordered a bunch of these that I could find, so that in case multiples of these are bad, then it wouldn't necessarily impact in any way. We could still get a full 512K of memory in this machine. And what's in here today is a combination of MOSTEC memory. They made a version of this, as well as Oki. Oki made a version of this, and I believe this is a Samsung chip, and Texas Memory Systems also made a version of this chip. So there was quite a few manufacturers out there, but yeah, we're just going to use that chip right there. The rest of these stand out pretty far. But they do seem seated. They're not crinkling or anything when I push them back in. So I think they're going to be okay. And now we have a full complement of memory. And in order to test this out, we are going to need a video card. And so this is the video card I'm going to use. You can see right down here, it is one of the Hercules cards that supports Hercules graphics. And I've also plugged in a LCD screen. And the reason I did this was because I wasn't really sure which graphic card I was going to use, but I've got my RGB to HDMI device hooked up. You can see it kind of back there. And that allows me to swap between different cards very easily. And I don't have to worry about pulling out a different monitor or anything. I can just use that. And it'll look great. We can test it right here on this device. Now, there is an issue with the 5170 where if you have faulty memory in one of the banks, you end up not being able to use EGA graphics. So I'm just going to go for it here. I'm just going to go ahead and put this video card in. It's 8-bit. Can I get it in? This motherboard needs some more standoffs in there because this side of the board is really bending quite a bit when I press down on this side of the motherboard. So I'm just going to brace it for now and see if I can get, there we go. Okay, the card's in there good enough now. But yeah, I'm going to have to definitely do something, put some rubber, little rubber feet under here or something to brace this side of the board. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the video cable here, which is going wonky. If you've noticed in the background, looks okay, except for CGA MDA mode. And I know this is a Hercules card, so I'm going to go ahead. I think this supports CGA though, actually. This is just a cheap chickeny keyboard, rubber dome keyboard, but it is an AT keyboard. So this is just the one I have. Look, it even has Windows keys on it. So this is a late keyboard for sure. The reason I didn't hook up the original keyboard that I got with this is it's so dirty. I need to clean it. I just can't hook that up right now. I'm going to clean it and then I'll hook it up and test it. But for now, it'll be up to this cheap chickeny keyboard. Okay, the connection in the back of this where the HDMI cable plugs in might be bad, but let's just go for broke here. It appears to be working right now. I've got my hard drives hooked up. Got the video card hooked up. I've got the keyboard hooked up. Let's see what happens. Cross your fingers and watch down here for tantalums to pop. Here we go. Oh, got a cursor. Hey, look at that. It's counting up the RAM. So far, no blown caps. As dirty as this thing is, I am super surprised. Okay, diskette error. System options not set because we took the battery out probably. CRT error, diskette error, resume, hit the F1 key. It's not gonna, so if that's all okay, by the way. We got 2 diskette errors, no problem. I don't have the floppy or the hard drive plugged in. System options not set, yeah, that's okay as well. We have to run the setup disk for that. And then the CRT error, that one's a little bit more curious. Maybe that might be one of the wacky things that happens with the 5170. So I think I'm okay here. Let's just hit F1 and see what happens. Hopefully you can see how nice and clear that is. Look at that, the IBM personal computer. Wow. Really cool. Everything, for now anyway, is actually working. Nice. We're not done yet though, because I have to clean up the floppy drive, see if we can get that thing working. That's down here. And then I want to do something about this battery. That should be pretty easy, I assume, because it's got the little place to plug in the battery on the motherboard. And yeah, I think that's it. So one thing I noticed when I was working on, when I was looking at these drives, is that this drive here is pretty stiff when I put it down. I mean, it feels like it wants to close about there. And the other drives that I'm used to working with, maybe I've never worked on this one exactly, it does close, but it takes a lot of force. Whoops, there goes the hard drives. A lot of force to actually get that all the way closed. So I don't know if that's just something normal about this drive or if there's something maybe in the way or something not working right mechanically. And the other thing was one of the guys online said that they didn't think this was a original blanking plate here that goes in the PC because it was discolored. And maybe you can see, if I put some more light on this, I don't know, you can definitely see that the shade, this has yellowed a bit over time, and the shade of yellow is different, or beige, is different between these two pieces here. But I'm not sure if this was a aftermarket piece or what. Maybe whoever got this, maybe Preminos Corporation out of Concord, as a distributor, when they sold this, maybe they used their own plate instead of the standard one. But the curious thing is that it is screwed onto this plate, which is then screwed onto the case. So if it's not an original, it's a pretty good reproduction. So if I take this off, there we go. You can see, and it even has the black backing here. So, I mean, to my eyes, this seems like it would be an IBM original part, but of course it's going to be difficult to tell. There's not going to be any part numbers probably on something like this. But yeah, really curious to know if anyone knows if this is a original IBM part or a aftermarket part. You guys can leave that in the comments below. And here's another curious thing that I guess I didn't know about these 5170s, is that the drives are actually on rails. I don't know if you can see that over here. I'll show you in a little bit, but there was this little bracket here, which just screwed into the case here. And when I took that off, the drive just slides right out. And I'll take off the ribbon cable here. Come on, there we go. And you can see it's got a nice big grounding wire attached to it. And there's the rails on that side. So interesting. I didn't know that the 5170 had rails. Learn something new every day. And here's the label on the back of the drive. This is a YE Data. Hopefully that's focusing. YE Data YD380 drive, manufactured for IBM. And it is indeed 1.2 megabytes. And inside on the bottom here of the PC, I found this Concord Locksmith and Control Master. I wonder who the Control Master is. Hey, baby, you want to be my Control Master? Okay, first thing I want to do is see if I can get this faceplate off easily. And if you look down in here, there's a screw right down there, and there's a screw right down there. So I think those two screws are the screws that's holding on the faceplate, hopefully. Okay, let's see if the faceplate will come off. And it looks like it is, but it also looks like I'm going to have to take off, looks like the flap, the lever, whatever it's called, needs to come off. And there is indeed a set screw. You can see it right here on top of this, of the lever here. If you turn that down, there's a little set screw, so we'll take that out, and this should come right out. There we go. Nice little spider web there as well. And the good news is I'm not seeing any obstructions in there. It just looks like a really tight fit. So that's good. And if I unplug this, then I should be able to lift this up, and there we go. There's the beautiful insides. And there's one of the heads. There should be one on the other side, and I'll be giving those a good clean with some rubbing alcohol. And you don't want to lift this up too much. I just lift it up just a little bit so that I can get in here and clean this off. And the head doesn't look too dirty, but just give it a... There's so many spider webs in this. I just want to make sure that I give it a nice, good clean on both the top and the bottom. So here's the head assembly, and there's a rail that this rides on. It's down in there. It's kind of a darker color, like an amber color rail there that this is supposed to ride on. And yeah, this isn't moving at all. And I believe it's supposed to move with the power off because the motors aren't actuated. So, or actuating, they're not powered up. That's what I meant to say. So yeah, this should be riding on that rail, but it's not. So I'm going to clean that up really well and see if I can get that freed up. Yeah, this rail obviously had grease on it at some point, and now it's just really, really dirty. I don't know how dirty that is. That was just from a couple of scrubs. So the rail is really need to be cleaned and re-lubricated. I hope the motor isn't seized up. You can see I've just cleaned this off a little bit. If I move this, oh, there it goes, there it goes, it's going. Oh, it was just really gummed up. It's like, oh, it's like resting in that spot. So let's see, yeah, there's a rail on the other side as well here that also needs to be cleaned up. So clean and lube, clean and lube. And I'm going to be applying some of this white lithium grease. You could also use silicone grease if you want to, but this is just what I happen to have on hand. And you don't need very much at all if you've never done this before. You can see how little I have on this cotton bud, and even that's a little bit much, but I'm going to probably use just that for both rails, just that little bit of lithium grease. Okay, now we can work this back and forth a bit. Well, it's certainly moving now. It wasn't even moving when I started. I can feel the motor, the steps of the motor kicking in there. So that's good. So now what's going on? I can hear you say, well, I brought in another PC. This is my all-in-one, every DOS, every Windows version PC. And last time I talked about this, several of you wanted me to do a dedicated video on how I built this. So I will be doing that in another video. But one of the reasons that I built it was because this motherboard sits right in the middle of like the early 2000s or mid 2000s. And so it had to be backwards compatible and forwards compatible with a lot of different things. And it should be able to run this 1.2 megabyte drive with no problem. So let me hook up a keyboard and a mouse, and I've got the drive hooked up after the twist, which I believe is how it should be. And I've got power installed, so we can test this thing out. Floppy configuration. Make a floppy A. We don't want that. We want 1.2 meg. There we go. So let's go into Windows Explorer. It sees a drive. Yep. Oh, look at that. Got a light. It's trying to read. The head did not sound good, but maybe that is just this particular drive. Let me get a disk and stick in there and see what we get. Yeah, that worked right away. No issues. So yeah, this is a working drive. I think I don't think there was anything really wrong with it. The door is just it is just hard. I don't think there's really any adjustment in here to make. I think that's just the way this particular drive is. Okay, let's see how this works in DOS. There's something still sticking in there. I don't know if you could heard that, but there's like a little bonk in there somewhere. So there's definitely something still sticking in the mechanism. It does seem to work. Sector not found, reading drive A. That could be because this is a 360K drive. Let me get a bigger drive. Let me get a disk that's formatted for this drive and see how that works. Okay, well, I've discovered the source of the clunking sound, and I had to. The only way I could figure this out was to leave the drive plugged in and leave it running, but take the logic board off here. And here's what happens when you stick a disk in. It goes clunk. And then if I take this out again, if you wait a little bit, watch over here. That goes clunk back up. It didn't that time, but it goes clunk back up. So it's not, and watch the head doesn't go down right away either. Well, I guess the head is going down, but it's getting hung up on this metal part. So I think there's something sticky on the underside of this bar here. Okay, well, I got this part out, and what it is it's actually something in the solenoid that's sticking. If I hold this down and let go, you can see it sticks like that, and that's what's making the noise. At first I thought it was something under here that was sticky, or this foam maybe had deteriorated, and the foam's not in great shape, but it's not, it's still pretty springy, and it's not causing any problems. It's just this solenoid. So again, if I hold it down for a second, it sticks and then it comes back. So, there's something in there that I need to clean, or maybe put a little piece of something there so it doesn't stick anymore. All right. Well, I was able to use one of these foam pads that I use sometimes for cleaning, the heads of, these disk drives actually. And look what I got out of there. Some really nasty oil or grease or something was in there, causing it to stick. So hopefully that'll fix it. Okay, so I've been trying to think about this drive a little bit. One of the things I noticed was that the The head seems to be okay on the inner parts of the disk, like when it's just moved a little bit. And then as it moves further to get to those outer tracks, it seems to be encountering some sort of problem. And to me, at first, that sounds like a head alignment issue, potentially. But there's a couple of things that I was thinking about that I want to try to be able to fix that. One is the stepper motor itself. I noticed that as the stepper moves, if I move the head assembly by hand, moving this stepper motor, a lot of times I'll get to some place kind of in the middle here, like right there, there's like a bump. I can feel a bump right there. And it's hard for me to figure out if that's the stepper motor or something else in there. So my thinking is that I need to oil the stepper motor probably anyway, just because the lubrication here can get gummed up. And so probably I should just oil it anyway and just see if that helps things along. And then there's also, if that doesn't work, then I can check the alignment I think you can use an oscilloscope to check the speed and the alignment based on what the manual was saying. So I'll do that next because that's it takes a little bit more time and is a little bit more cumbersome. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just oil the stepper motor and leave that sit. I'm going to use this Tri-Flow lubricant. I found out about this from Adrian's Digital Basement, one of his videos, and I've used it for a bunch of different stuff, and a little goes a long way. So this 6-ounce bottle will probably last me a lifetime. It really does seem to work great for all sorts of things. 1 drop, 2 drops. That should be more than enough. I don't want the oil to, there be so much oil that it drips out over everything. But that's in there, and this little straw really comes in handy. That comes with it. So don't lose that. And now with it on its side like this, I'm just going to move the head back and forth a bit. Oh wow, I can already feel that that's a little better, measurably better, but not, not night and day, but certainly measurably better. So I'm just going to rotate that maybe 20 times or so. And then I'm going to let this sit, like I said, for a couple of hours. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes. I'm not patient enough to wait for 2 hours. I just want to test it. I can always wait longer if I need to. But I'm booted back up into DOS, and I've got a disk in here. So let's do format. Now format, I don't know if I captured this on screen before, but the format was only formatting the first 200K or so of the drive, and then the head was just going back and forth seeking. It couldn't really work. And so what I'm hoping is that the format on this one will go a lot faster and just be a normal format. So we'll do format, insert a new disk, checking disk format, 1.2 meg, so it recognizes that it can format it as 1.2 meg, and look how fast it's going. This is a lot faster than it was going before. This is already at 30%. So yeah, this was taking forever before, and I think what was happening was it wasn't aligning right, and because of the stepper motor, and so it was marking those tracks as bad, and it was doing a head seek for every track past a certain point, and now it's already at 72, 75. Holy moly, this thing's going fast now. That oil definitely helped. I think this is going to solve the issue. Boom, format complete. Holy moly, that was quick. Done. And here we see we have the full space available on the disk. So even though that looked like an alignment issue, it really just came down to lubricating the stepper motor. So my recommendation is clean, lubricate your rails, lubricate the stepper motor. Simple, pretty easy to do, and you don't have to take everything apart. And then if that doesn't work, you have to move on to some more complicated things. Okay, I'm back in Linux. In case you're wondering, the reason I'm using Linux is because it has wide support for older hardware, newer hardware, lots of things. Really love Linux. That's why I wrote a book about it. But this means that I can transfer files really easily from an SD card or, in this case, a USB thumb drive over to this 1.2 meg floppy disk, right? Something it's pretty difficult to do on other systems. You'd pretty much need a Windows 98 install or above to be able to get the USB support, and then you could talk to it. But, you know, that's a little bit tricky these days, and I'm going to go over that anyway when I show how to build this multi-OS machine. So anyway, let's go to the floppy drive, make sure it's still working. And we should be able to paste these files in here. Oh, nope, I've got to open as root first. I think for security, Linux does not let you paste files natively, so you just say open as root and put in your root password, and then I should be able to paste these files in. Okay, so they show up, but they haven't been written yet. So you can see that the drive is now writing those files out, and I can see it. The nice thing is I can see it moving the head here. Looks like it's done. Yep. So now if I close out this window, oh, nope, it's not done. And this would happen in the background anyway, even if I did close out this window, I think, but there we go. That should be done. Close that out. And now here are all the files. So it looks like these files are there. Let's reboot into DOS and see if we can run this game. Okay, first let's just take a look at the disk and see if everything is on there. Looks like it. Almost a meg worth of stuff on there. So that looks good. And then I think, I'm not familiar with this game. Maybe we tried Thief to start it up. It looks like it's running normally. Let's see. There we go. Come here, the tale of... Oh, it's going off the screen. I can't see. God returned to have his way. Creatures of darkness, spawn of the night, the mad ones... Can destroyed. I don't think I have any speakers hooked up to this too, so I don't know if there's sound with this. But yeah, looks really good. Classic DOS game running off of a single 1.2 meg drive that is now repaired and working. So now let's take this and try it out back in the 5170 and make sure it's working over there. Okay, well, I've got the drive installed back in the chassis. I was just having some fun creating some floppy drive or floppy disks with it off of some floppy disk images that I'm going to be using to test this out. Yeah, it's time to power this thing on and see if it works. However, before we can do that, we need to install this disk controller back in here. And one of the things that worries me beyond the spider eggs here, the spider egg sack that's all over this thing, is these pins here. I don't know if you can see that, but these pins are quite bent. And so hopefully that hasn't actually done any damage to the back of the card. Otherwise, the card looks pretty good. And if I look on the back here, it doesn't look like it's broken any of the solder joints on those pins. So I'm going to try straightening those out with a pair of needle nose pliers, and hopefully that'll be good enough to do the job without doing any more damage. Okay, well, I've got everything connected. These floppy cables are the original. They're even marked A, B, C, and D on the other side of the cables where they plug into the drives, which is pretty cool. Oh, and I've also got the disk in there with MS-DOS 5. So hopefully that will boot up into MS-DOS if this works. Okay, here we go. Let's see what kind of error codes we get. Yeah, we only get one diskette error now. So let's see if it actually boots. Okay, that's going to make us resume. But before I was getting two diskette errors, and I think that was because I had this IBM floppy disk controller unplugged. And it just, when it's unplugged, it just gives you an extra 601 error. So let's just try hitting F1 and see what happens. Ah, it's not booting off the floppy drive. So those of you who have worked on the 5170 before are probably screaming at your TV now. Because I forgot that I have to actually run a setup disk, or you can do this from BASIC. And what worries me is that I'm not even getting a light on the drive to run the setup disk that would have come from the system. And I think that's because the battery's dead. So I think I have to first make sure that the battery is replaced, and then I can either run setup from BASIC, or I still don't think it's going to recognize that disk, so I think I'm going to have to get in from BASIC. But let me get that battery replaced, and we'll go from there. And there's a better look at the battery. Lithium magnesium oxide, I think that is. Chemistry experts can correct me. 6 volts. So yeah, gonna have to find a 6-volt battery, or at least something close to that. 5 volts might work, but I think it's got to be around 5 or 6 volts. And this is not a rechargeable battery either. So you can't just pop in a couple rechargeable coin cells or something like that. Although I wonder if a couple coin cells would work on this. It'll be a little above the limit. I'll have to see. And through the magic of editing, 10 minutes later, here is my new battery. It's 2 coin cells put together. One of them's a little low. So overall, I measured it. It's saying 6.3 volts. So I think that'll work. And then what I did was I just took a little header like this and soldered that on. I'll make a more permanent one later if I feel like it, if this works, and clean that up. But I just want to test this thing out and get it up and running. Okay, the battery is in and installed, and now I'm getting an additional message when I boot this up, which is time and date not set. I wasn't getting that before. And the 601 error has gone away. So let's go ahead and hit F1 and see what happens now. Okay, the drive is spinning. Will it do anything without the proper setup, though? Hey, there we go. MS-DOS version 5 from AST. This thing is working, 100% working. That's awesome. Now, if you're wondering why I'm using AST, it's because I wanted to have a version of DOS that was a disk image from a 1.2 meg disk, because of some of the incompatibilities that I remember are there from trying to read and write 360K disks on a 1.2 megabyte drive. I think this one solves that a little bit by running the whole drive slower, but at the same time, I tried a 360K disk in here at one point while I was messing around, and it didn't work. So anyway, just to keep everything safe and ready to go, I went ahead with a 1.2 megabyte image, which is what this just booted off of. So the floppy drive is now working 100% correctly. We're getting this thing to boot up into DOS installation mode. So now if I had a hard drive, this thing would absolutely work. I do want to go back though and make another disk for the setup and take care of the setup options. And this question of a configurable BIOS that we can actually go in and do some setup on is actually a new thing, or was a new thing at this point in time. So if you look back at the 5150, which was the original IBM PC, or the PC XT that came after it, they didn't have software setup options. And they certainly didn't have anything that looked like a BIOS that we would think of today, where you can hit delete or F2 or some kind of key on boot up and go in and change things. This was a brand new thing for PCs of this era, and they were all kind of starting to get this idea of, we want to have some sort of software configuration that we can then make changes to, change the configuration on the fly, if you will. And this was before this, in the previous 2 PCs that IBM put out. It was all hard-coded in the BIOS. You could make configuration changes, but you had to do it with dip switches that were mounted on the motherboard. So for example, you want to change your memory configuration, you got to change some dip switches. You want to change to a different display type, you have to change the dip switches. That was how it was done. So this was still relatively new, and I think it will be really interesting to go back and see how it compares to probably what we're more used to in the modern age. But a lot more work has to be done to this PC. Finally got the floppy drive working, but I also want to take a look and see if there's perhaps some other BIOSes that I could install besides the stock IBM one, because those were third parties were starting to put out their own BIOS that you could install. And I also have that monitor that I showed on the eWaste Wednesday video that I think came with this PC. It's an EGA monitor, but it is in horrible condition. I was able to plug it in and get it working, but it needs a lot of cleanup, and this needs a lot of cleanup too. So I think it's been a while since I've done a cleaning montage. I think I'll go through and show my process. I think this thing's going to need a complete hose down, or maybe I'll take it through a car wash or something to get all of the little pieces of leaves and stuff out of there. We'll see. That'll be next time. But until then, thanks to everybody for their support. Hit that like button on the video or subscribe. Perhaps you could become a patron and support me and really help the channel grow that way. I'll take any of the above, and even those great comments that you guys leave are certainly appreciated. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Patrons receive ad-free and early access to content after the episode commentary, and of course, your name in the credits. If you liked that episode, here's a few more you might enjoy, and I thank you for your support.
End of line.